This podcast is made possible by the listener members of Nashville Public Radio.
This is the Nashvillager podcast. It's February 19th, 2025. On this day in 1997, the FCC opened the path for local and state governments to take advantage of two new simple phone numbers. 311 became the go-to for non-emergency services. And these days in Nashville, dialing that number will connect you to Hub Nashville, which is basically a one-stop shop for the kind of things a resident might need from Metro, like reporting potholes or finding out your day for trash pickup. The other number that was opened up in 1997 is 711. That's for people who need extra help communicating by telephone because of a speech, hearing, or visual disability. Dialing that number connects you to the state's relay service, and that helps people with specialized equipment like text telephones or telebraille machines so that they can make the connections necessary for a phone call. I'm Nina Cardona, and this is your daily digest of what's happening around Middle Tennessee from Nashville Public Radio, WPLN News. I think a lot of us without disabilities don't really know about 711 or how relay services work. It's part of a whole network of access technology and efforts and needs that don't really get much attention from the mainstream community. And along those lines, this week it was announced that there's an effort underway to have Nashville host a sporting event that I don't think many people in the community at large have thought of as something our growing portfolio of sports venues might house. Sure, there's been lots of talk about the Super Bowl or maybe some portion of NCAA basketball playoffs. But Nashville is making a bid for the 2030 Special Olympics USA Games. It's a substantial event. According to Special Olympics Tennessee, the games are expected to include more than 4,000 athletes, 10,000 volunteers, and 125,000 spectators. To put that into context, last year's CMA Music Fest drew about 90,000 people each day. There were about 70,000 at Bonnaroo. So this could be bigger than two of the biggest events on our local calendar each year. Or how about this? The New Orleans officials say they had about 100,000 visitors for the recent Super Bowl. That's still shy of the projected number of spectators for the 2030 Special Olympics. Now, like their namesake, the Special Olympics take place once every 4 years. They last about a week. There are opening and closing ceremonies. Athletes with a range of intellectual disabilities participate in 18 sports. And there are elements beyond the stadium and competitions, too. The 2026 games in Minnesota will offer a fan zone and also health screenings. After all, these athletes have some really specialized needs. I'm struck by one big difference between this bid and what you might expect from one for a super high-profile event like a professional sports championship or a political convention. What I've often heard about those events is that organizations like the national political parties, the NFL, the NBA, they all expect an awful lot for free. And it's not just the organizing groups. Those events draw a lot of well-known people who want to be given star treatment as a gift. The best suite in the hotel, the best food at the finest restaurants, stuff like that. It really eats into the bottom line. Sometimes those events don't make money so much as they cement a city as a place to travel. They're free advertising for the Visitors Bureau. So you generally don't see a financial summary like the one suggested by Tennessee Special Olympics. According to their bid, the games would bring an estimated $100 million worth of economic impact to the city, which is far more than the estimated cost of $30 million to put on the games. In just a few minutes, a requiem for color. That's coming up after the newscast.
We know that local government isn't the only part of your life.
Like the mayor, I know that city government isn't the only thing you're concerned with.
We are still struggling to find affordable housing.
Particularly with this bus stop.
That's one of the unique challenges with my business.
I'm WPLN's Metro reporter Cynthia Abrams. I'm working to break down topics like transit, housing, and local government to make sure that when you are thinking about Metro, you're getting the full story. Follow my latest stories at WPLN.org.
Here's the latest from WPLN News. Middle Tennessee is under a blanket of snow this morning, 2 to 3 inches around Nashville. Areas around Clarksville and Waverly with up to 4 inches. There's a lighter dusting in the southeastern part of the mid-state. Conditions on roadways are slick and hazardous. And Tennessee Emergency Management Director Patrick Sheehan says that's likely to be the case for a little while.
It will stay below freezing here in most of Tennessee for much of the rest of the week. And so we ask folks to just give yourself time to travel if you have to go somewhere. And if you don't have to be out and about, it's a great time to snuggle in at home with your family and loved ones.
According to the forecast, it will be bitterly cold through Friday night or Saturday. For those who need a place to stay warm, there's a map of available shelters on the TEMA website. Sheehan says his agency is updating information on that map as they get word from local agencies. Meanwhile, WeGo is running buses on a Saturday schedule today with some extra routes. The WeGo Star train and the shuttle services that support it are operating. School districts around Middle Tennessee are closed today, including Metro Nashville. Many universities, including TSU and MTSU, are operating on a remote schedule. And Metro Nashville and Williamson County are among the local governments telling workers to stay home from work today. Metro Nashville courts are also closed. Tennessee faith leaders are speaking out against proposed state legislation to penalize charities that work with immigrants. One bill would label the act of harboring groups of people who entered the country illegally as, quote, human smuggling. It would give the Tennessee Attorney General the power to dissolve churches and nonprofits found to be in violation. Another bill opens the door to suing a group that provides housing for someone without legal status if that person goes on to commit a crime. The Chattanooga Times-Free Press reports pastors are expressing concern that the measures are so broadly written they could target a wide range of assistance programs. Most churches that feed people, offer temporary shelter, or teach English as a second language do not check people's immigration status. The bill's sponsors say they don't intend to interfere with that kind of help, but one also tells the newspaper, quote, even heaven has an immigration policy. Tennessee is one of the worst states in the country for maternal mortality. That's the rate of people dying within a year of childbirth. Lawmakers might create a new tool to curb that rate. There are warning signs for the main causes of maternal mortality, so the Department of Health would make posters and materials for new parents that provide information on those warning signs. Birthing centers and hospitals would be required to display them. Nashville Democrat Representative Caleb Hemmer is one of the bill's sponsors. He explains.
The different warning signs, heart conditions, mental health, infections were the leading causes of that. What are some things we can do to make common sense that don't cost money, that really can help move the needle?
The measure cleared its first hurdle this week, passing out of a subcommittee. It has to undergo several more votes before becoming law. Historic buildings in downtown Nashville and in other tourism hotspots in Tennessee could be easier to demolish or change under recently proposed state legislation. The bill is raising concern among preservationists and Nashville's mayor. It seeks to loosen historic oversight in what are known as tourism development zones. There are 8 such zones in Tennessee, including in the major cities and the Gatlinburg area. The proposal would apply to much of downtown Nashville, including Lower Broadway. That's where some property owners have been agitating for years for fewer restrictions. The iconic strip is often broadcast worldwide as a symbol of the city. The legislation comes at the same time Metro is considering local changes to how it oversees historic protections and overlays. Nashville Public Library officially has a director, and it's someone familiar. The library board named Terry Luke to the role yesterday. It's a position Luke has already been serving in for nearly 3 years, albeit in an interim capacity. That's after the board rejected all finalists for the role back in 2023. Jarvis Rand, a library board member, says the library's last few years indicate Luke's ability to lead successfully.
Since I've been on the board, we've never been in the paper for bad operations. We've never been in the paper about having a bad relationship with the council. We've never been in the paper having a bad relationship with the mayor. We have not been in the paper talking about cutting jobs. Today we're talking about hiring.
Board approval was unanimous. However, some speakers at the meeting did express disapproval. They clarified they didn't take issue with Luke. Rather, they felt the hiring process was not equitable. It was an unusual move for the board to approve Luke in this way. Typically, Metro departments hire directors after a multi-candidate search. But after that approach was unsuccessful 2 years ago, Metro attorneys determined the board could hire a director without another search. You'll find more news anytime at WPLN.org. It's the midpoint of the week, and this snow isn't going to stick around forever. So let's take a look at what there is to do after things thaw out a little.
even in the worst of all the days.
I'm Marquise Munson, here with another edition of Nashville Public Radio's What Where Wednesday, keeping you up to date with the happenings in Nashville this week. Live music opportunities range from WNXP presents Toro y Moi and Panda Bear at Marathon Music Works on Thursday, and WNXP Trivia is back at the Blue Room. At the same venue, 2 album release shows with Sunny War on Friday and New Translations on Saturday. For more events, head over to WNXP.org/events. This week for What Where Wednesdays, we discuss Requiem for Color, a musical, literary, and visual journey happening at the Fisher Center for the Performing Arts at Belmont University this Sunday.
My name is Dr. Jeffrey Ames. I am professor of music and director of choral activities at Belmont University. I think over the years, kind of realized that what I really wanted to do was to honor those formerly enslaved and those contemporary martyrs who have basically offered their lives as a sacrifice for freedom. As we think about so many modern day martyrs like Dr. King and Malcolm X and Fannie Lou Hamer, and even Shirley Chisholm during the time that she was running for office, national office. And in some cases, these people's lives were lost because of hatred for equality and for justice. And then others just really fought a good fight to do what they could to make the world a better place for not only Black people, but for all people. So that's what I really wanted to do. And the form that I kept replaying in my head was a requiem. It became a project of deep emotion that's filled with lament and also filled with joy. I think from the musical standpoint, the Requiem is a Latin text, sacred Latin text. And the forces that are used of course, if you have a Latin text, then you're going to have singers. So we've got a chorus of about 200 collegiate singers that have prepared this work. And I really could not think of any other instrumental force than an orchestra to also be featured in a project like this. We kind of unpack some heavy themes that I'm not going to shy away from, but the use of those choral orchestral forces, it really gives a big impact to the storyline. And Black Americans have such a diverse musical culture that it could not be dismissed. So it was actually fun to put in elements of the spiritual and to have that as basically the foundation, because it's the foundation for the blues, it's the foundation for R&B and for jazz and for gospel. So without the spirituals, we really would not have as deep of a repertoire that we have today. So it was fun using the spirituals as a base. In the movement, the Sanctus is a moment of celebration where we look at the successes of the Black race, looking at the Harlem Renaissance and the Apollo Theater and Black athletes and entertainers and, just the wonderful times that we've had. And I knew that would be infused with jazz because we created jazz. But what I did with that movement was we kind of start in the club with smooth jazz, if you would, and then it ends with a big band style that you would find by Duke Ellington and later Count Basie. The Libera Me, Deliver Me Lord, infuses hip hop because rappers have been notorious for using that manner of delivery to talk about social injustice and social equality. And we end with gospel. That's also, one of the staples of the Black American culture. There will be some disturbing images shown during the presentation, and especially for our college students right now, when we talk about these themes of injustice and inequality, and images are displayed for events that occurred long before they got here. was to tell them, hey, you had nothing to do with this, but you need to see it to recognize that it's truth. This is what happened, and then what you can do as a person to make the world a better place. So it's the same for the audience members. They come in and they may be reminded of the past, but also take a look at their own lives, and leaving the room having empathy for others is one of the key things I would like people to take away.
For more information about Requiem for Color and other events happening this week, visit WNXP.org. My name is Marquise Munson, and thank you for listening to another edition of What We're Wednesdays.
I hope that you stay warm while we wait out the storm.
Thanks for listening to the Nash Villager podcast. We take this look at Nashville news every weekday. If you like it, go ahead and subscribe on your favorite podcasting app and tell a friend or give us a mention on your socials. It really helps get the word out. And of course, everything at WPLN News is listener supported. You can become a member at WPLN.org. And that's it for today. Thanks so much for listening. Let's make this day a good one, and we'll catch back up tomorrow.